FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, and the date is August 10th, 2016. So retirement, something that used to be a much more simpler process. You worked for the same company for 20, 30 years. You decided it was time to leave, and you got a gold watch and a party, and the president shook your hand, and you went about your merry way. Maybe you decided to move to warmer climes, Florida or Arizona, whatever. And that was the way it worked. But it's a lot more complicated now. In fact, many of you, if you're baby boomers like me, you will never retire. Not that I particularly care to. I've already made up my mind. I will die with the boots on or with a microphone to my mouth. But hey, Captain Capitalism is on with us now, a.k.a. Aaron Clarey, and he's the CEO of A-Hole Consulting. And hey, as long as your customer base is made up of a-holes, I guess you'll never run out of clients in this environment, Aaron. But it's good to talk to you again. And hey, I haven't talked to you since we met up in your home state there of Minnesota, but great to have you back on.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, no, it was good to see you over at St. Paul. I don't get a lot of visitors because there's really no reason to visit Minnesota, but it was very good to see you.
Yeah, well, the reason I visited was because I had never been there before other than taking a few trips through the airport, which to me doesn't really count as visiting a state. And now I've been to 48 out of 57 states. So there you have it.
What'd you miss? Wyoming and Montana, or did you get those too?
I got them. The only states I haven't been to now are Alaska and Kentucky. I plan to go to the Derby this year, the Kentucky Derby. I've never been to it. And then I'm going to, hopefully next year, assuming that the world hasn't ended, which the way it's heading now, who the heck knows. But next year, I'll do an Alaskan cruise, and maybe I'll be able to see Russia from my porthole. And I'll do the Bering Straits and all that stuff. But, it was so much fun, and it was great seeing you. Minnesota's really a great state in the summer. You get your 2.5 months of summer, and it's dry. You know, it can get hot, but it's dry there. You get those breezes off the lakes. It's really delightful there.
Yeah, no, you hit it at the right time. You definitely don't want to come here. I mean, I leave, and I visited you multiple times during winter, and why am I here? And it has nothing to do with your friendship. I'm just escaping the weather. Like, I don't want to deal with -5 degrees. I'm so desperate, I'll even go hang out with Kerry Lutz. That's how that's the way.
Yeah, you got to be pretty desperate for that. But hey, so. Retirement, the traditional thing was, well, Social Security. Hopefully it'll still be here. I get to start collecting shortly under the widow's benefits. But pretty much the way it would work is you get your Social Security, you'd get a company pension, defined benefit pension. They don't exist anymore. So now you're pretty much on your own. So you're going to hopefully get some money from your 401k and from your fund that you've invested in the stock market. But you might have some problems with that, huh?
Right. I mean, well, first, traditionally, there was no such thing as retirement. I mean, you worked till you were dead. That's 99.9% of the human experience was you were born and you worked till you died. So this retirement thing really didn't come along until, well, frankly, capitalism made it that we produced more or a surplus amount of goods over the course of our lives that we could float for the remaining 5, 10, maybe even 15 or 20 years of our lives. So the concept of retirement is relatively new in the grand scheme of human history. But when we introduced, no matter how well intended, okay, we're going to have our pensions companies, they say, okay, we're going to do our pension calculations. Yeah, we can pension off Herb. Well, they didn't expect life expectancies to go up. Their actuaries back in the day totally underestimated the cost. This is why if you look at GM, I mean, what was it? Anywhere between $1,500 to $2,000 of the cost of the GM car is pension costs. So yes, they're phasing that out. And then, hey, new plan, guys. The government's going to come in and it's going to kindly say, well, we're going to give you a tax deduction or some kind of tax benefit if you invest in the stock market. They give us the defined contribution plans, the 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, or for the Canadians, the RRSPs. And it's all good and well, but what's happened since 1978 when the 401k first came online is we've flooded the market with a ton of retirement. I mean, trillions of retirement dollars. And what that did is it drove up prices, but it did not increase your earnings or the dividends or the underlying driver of value that gives these stocks and bonds, well, less bonds, but stocks, mutual funds, their price, their value. And so people are mindlessly just throwing their money via 401k. I mean, I know everyone thinks it's a good kind of Dave Ramsey-esque habit to put your paycheck on a automatic, pre-401k deduction. Like it just takes out the $300 a month and it goes right into my 401k. It's like, have you ever bothered looking at the value, at the price of the stock you're paying relative to the underlying earnings? And so what's happened is the market's been flooded with money, typical of a classical Keynesian bubble where government's going to go do something good, and the unintended consequences is that we've created another bubble. And so this is why your S&P 500, I have to take a look at it. The PE ratio is up to 26 or so now. The historical average has been 15. That's a 45% overvaluation. You look at dividend yield, it's even worse. I mean, we could talk about earnings all day, but you don't get earnings. It's what the corporation decides to charitably pay out to you in the form of a dividend. And right now, the S&P is trading at a dividend yield of 2%. You're making the same amount investing in stocks. In terms of real earnings, in terms of actual profits, you're making 2% on dividends, which is no different than the maybe 1.5% you're making on your bank savings account. But somehow we're all excited about investing in stocks, and we're relying on this vehicle to provide for our retirement because it provides an 8.5 annual rate of return. Well, they're looking at price increases. They're looking at capital gains, not the fundamentals. So I ended up, I did a study. I ran some numbers about, basically asking, can the stock market retire us all? Can the stock market be the sole retirement vehicle that the government ordained it to be? And the numbers don't look good at all.
Hmm. So you mean to tell me it's not like real estate? Like housing always goes up, house prices always go up, stock market always goes up every 10 years, looking at 10-year periods, the stock market's always gone up with the exception of the Great Depression?
No, I mean, well, we know stocks go up and down, and we finally taught American and the public that housing can, I mean, anything can go down. So we know that, but the general conventional financial planning, retirement planning is you buy and hold, you hold on forever. There's ups and downs, you ride them, but on the average, your stock market's going to provide you an 8.5% rate of return. And that's all great and wonderful, but it's based on history. That doesn't mean it's going to continue on into the future. And so what ends up happening is if you get this mindless, okay, we're going to have this behavior, we're going to have this habit, and it's going to be reinforced not only with good, warm, fuzzy feelings from our HR department, but tax benefits from the government. You get this perma bubble that forms, and now we're no longer getting a bang for our buck. And so what I did is I crunched some numbers to find out, okay, there's 77 million baby boomers, and the numbers become somewhat gray because this is really hard to do because not everyone's going to retire on the same day. You don't switch from equity to bonds in one shot in one day. You phase in and out of the others. But just doing some rudimentary math, you got 77 million baby boomers. And hang on, let me pull it. I got because the math is a little complicated. And you got, assuming $40,000 a year they're going to need to retire, it's $800,000 for a 20-year retirement. And if you're going to have each boomer retiring on that, you're going to need about $61 trillion between the bonds and the equity markets. In the United States, I know we can invest overseas, you're just simplifying it, but we got roughly $61 trillion in needed capital, market capitalization, and the baby boomers need roughly, $60.4 trillion. So we're doing good now, but the problem is this assumes a lot of stuff, predominantly that all the money in the stock and bond markets are dedicated towards retirement, and they're just not. There's some institutional investors, some corporations obviously hold trillions worth of just marketable securities to park their cash in something.
And central banks, the central banks are there, like tons of money. Yeah,
hedge funds. I mean, there's a lot, and then there's this other thing called the distribution of ownership, and it's really hard to peg this down, but you take the top 10% of boomers, and they own it. I've seen ranges from 50 to 80%. In terms of the wealth. Let's just assume the top 10% of the boomers own 50%, which is a pretty conservative assumption. That leaves 50% left to fund and finance the retirement of the remaining 90% of the baby boomers. And so you account for this. In short, the gist of it is right now the baby boomers today need $55 trillion worth of market capitalization to retire. And you take the non-10%, you account for institutional ownership and all that, your average baby boomer, they only got $23 trillion. Mm-hmm. So today, if we're going to retire today, and the baby boomers are retiring today, the stock market has to more than double, now. By the time our conversation is over, the S&P 500 better be at 4,500 because otherwise the baby boomer, you mathematically cannot retire. And this is bearing out. This is why we have reverse mortgages. This is why, I hope Social Security there, why you have a lot of baby boomers working past retirement age. So this whole concept, this idealistic of let's retire at 65 and then we'll live to 85 and everything will be Andy Griffith and Barney Fife coming down and having a cup of coffee at Floyd's barbershop. That is not going to happen, and it's not happening today.
So it sounds like your Smith & Wesson retirement program might be the most viable option that many of you out there have, huh?
Well, see, everyone mistakes that. They get all emotional. That's like in case you are terminally ill and in great pain. That was my the Smith & Wesson. I'm like, if before your hospital bills, just to keep you alive that extra 6 months in wreathing pain, and you got a bedpan and you're being pushed around in a wheelchair, that's what that was for.
Yeah, I know.
Which would certainly save a lot of money. But yeah, no, just because you run out of money or you don't have any money in a 401k, and all of a sudden you're 65 but you're perfectly healthy, you don't off yourself with the Smith & Wesson retirement plan. Yeah. It would be preferable to work.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's kind of silly, but yeah, it's a bit worrisome. But retirement is not all it's cranked up to be either here, Aaron. I mean, how many people you hear about, they're happy working their job, fulfilled, satisfied, then they retire, and you move down to Florida, also known as God's waiting room for some reason. And man, in 3 months, they're like, their health is gone. They're on a breathing tube, a feeding tube, and they're just gone in like a year because they have no reason to live. Their work was their main sense of fulfillment in life. And now you're just a lost soul. You're in the rocking chair and very few hobbies. You haven't found another thing to take up your time and your interest and really drive you. So many of you out there really shouldn't retire. You shouldn't think of retiring, or you should find another job, even if it's being a greeter at Walmart or working at a 7-Eleven, whatever it is. And I'm not looking down at those jobs either. Somebody has to do them. They're important. Every job is important. You can't really say this job's more important than that job. It's just a question of whether or not you'd want to do them or not.
Right. Well, I mean, this is, and the rare instance I get a retired or higher age client, as the majority of my clients are younger guys, and it's kind of ironic. You got these older, wiser gentlemen, predominantly men, taking advice from a young pup like me. Almost, I'd say, a good 80% of their questions are, "What do I do now?" They have all the money in the world. They did it right. They're just like, why? And you're absolutely right. If you do not have purpose or agency, you will die. I mean, you'll get depressed. Your diet will go down. You need to have some kind of vigor and point and purpose in life. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your job, but man, I have seen it. And there's a jump in suicide. And now a lot of it is because of people actually do. I mean, it's a dirty secret people don't like to talk about, but people actually do execute the Smith & Wesson retirement plan more than you realize. Yes, but a lot of that also has to do is triggered by not necessarily bad health or terminal health, but just, I mean, you put in your 50 years, you're a widow or a widower, And now you go down south and there's nobody. No one plays tennis. You don't have that camaraderie to go into the office and poke fun and make jokes with everybody else. But yeah, absolutely. No. And that's going to be the saving grace, I think, for not just the boomers, but for other future generations, because every generation, the numbers only get worse for Gen X and the millennial. I mean, it only becomes more mathematically impossible where you're talking dividend yields of like a 0.25%. But yeah, you're going to have to work. And this is what's going to save your retirement is you're going to want to, or you're going to minimize your spending. And the issue of actually fully retiring and having enough money in your accounts, it's not going to be that. It's going to be, can you physically work? It's going to be maintaining your health. So now you can keep up your mental health, but then you can keep up your personal retirement finances.
Yeah. And it's funny, even those of you out there who think you hate your job, who can't stand getting up in the morning and putting on the suit or the uniform and going to work, those are the ones who do the worst in retirement. You know that, Aaron? They're the ones, you're the ones who suffer and last 6 months in retirement because that job secretly is fulfilling a hell of a lot of needs. So the concept of retirement, like, oh, I'll go fish, I'll spend more time with the grandkids. Trust me, your grandkids don't want you full-time 24/7 in your life, and your kids certainly don't. You know, like I could just see, like, I'll go spend 4 months a year with each of my kids, man. They'll be tearing out their hair and I'll be tearing out my hair. Love my kids more than anything. I see them 3-4 times a year. You know, I'll go visit them. They'll visit me, but that's enough. That's not a strategy for retirement. And retirement really should be a 4-letter word.
Right. Well, and what's sad, and not sad, but it's good. I'm incredibly blessed with the weird career that has happened to me. I mean, I can work from wherever. The laptop, it's the internet age. And, you know, I'm living the dream. But one of the most important lessons I've learned driving around the country on my motorcycle, crashing with different fans, you know, free rider, crashing at a hotel and hiking around is the concept of novelty. It's simply the law of supply. And you think, oh, it's going to be great to go fishing, or oh, it's going to be great to go on a boat. I don't care how awesome it is. Too much of it will ruin it. Novelty will wear off. And so like the first 2 or 3 months, it's great. Like you're fishing and you're doing this, but then you'll be sick and tired of fishing. And you'll be sick and tired of going and getting fine food at those many fine restaurants you have down in Florida. You'll be sick of boating. And then all of a sudden you got, well, what else are you going to do? With me, it was, I mean, I am actually kind of tired of mountain hiking. I'm tired of motorcycle riding, and you know, you drive all over. Then all of a sudden you're posed with the question, what do you do for intellectual stimulation? What do you do for fun? And you realize that it was what you retired from, going in there, producing, and more importantly, hanging out with other people. So, yeah, that's that. I mean, we can talk about 401ks, IRAs, and how much money do you need to sock away each month. That's all nice and academic, and it should be done. But a more important question for people going forward in retirement is, okay, what are you going to do for purpose, agency, and reason in life, and intellectual stimulation and human interaction after you knock out 8 hours a day of having that, no matter how sterile or boring and cubicle-like an environment that may have been.
Yeah, for sure. So you've got to be thinking about this, and it creeps up on you a lot faster than you ever thought possible. Those golden years that are ahead of you are only golden years if you plan for them and you're ready for them. Otherwise, they could be pure torture and hell and be a lot shorter than you ever thought. So, Aaron, new book. It's out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, new book's called Reconnaissance Man.
And what's the deal there? What's it about?
Not too unlike what we're talking about with retirement. Basically, once again, clients, I get a really good finger on the pulse of these young kids coming up. I get a common question. They're going to college, or they're about to go to college, and they find out they don't know what they want to study. And they're put in a paradox, younger people, obviously, that their parents are going to cut off their support if they don't go back to college. And they even try and reason with the parents saying, look, I don't know what I want to study, or what I'm majoring in now is stupid. I got to major in something smart. You know, let me go work a little bit and figure some things out before I go back to college. And a lot of these kids are in a rock and a hard place, and their parents are going to kick them out, cut their funding, when these kids are trying to make a logical, very wise decision. So what I did is I kind of looked back in my life and I said, okay, what were my major mistakes? And my major mistakes were going right to college after high school, not taking the time to figure out what I wanted to study or major, picking the University of Minnesota because it had reciprocity and not that it had nice weather or anything that I'd want to do in this state. And now here I am 20 odd years later, stuck in this state because I've planted roots. And so the whole point of Reconnaissance Man is that every boy or girl or every young man and woman, I mean, you could be under 40, that's fine. If you are like thinking about going back to college or you're wandering around in the desert, you need to go out and do some reconnaissance. Specifically, you got to go travel the United States. If you have the money, fine, travel the world, but this assumes you're a 17, 18-year-old kid. And basically it says, go out, explore different places, see if you can work, out in the field for each summer vacation you have, and find out where in this country you belong. And if you find out where you belong in terms of for example, I should have gone to Denver. I love Denver. There's hiking, it's warm. Everybody's in shape. The women are beautiful because there's mountains to climb. There's fossil hunting, it's everything. If I had a playground, it would be Colorado. And if I went there, I would have been set up, had my roots planted there. I probably would have gone to the Colorado School of Mines. And I would have led a much better life. And so it would have been totally worth me spending 2 years traveling around the country, no matter what state of poverty, sleeping at waysides, washing my socks in the wayside sinks, whatever I have to do to inevitably find Denver, say, I really like it here. Spend a year working there, whatever job I had to, living in whatever squalor of conditions I had to gain residency so I could attend in-state tuition in Colorado. And then I would have been infinitely ahead, like decades ahead, and maybe even $200,000 ahead had I done it that way. So the importance is finding out where you belong in this country, moving there first, figuring out who you are, what you want to major in, what you want to become along the way, and then going forth and investing in your future, be it education, training, college, joining the military, whatever. But these kids coming right out of high school, they don't know jack. They're so tired and so beleaguered by the public schools that they have had no time to think about the future in their life and what they want to become. So once you get out of that prison, you got to go and explore and figure out what you want out of this world.
It's so important, and you hit upon something. You don't sound exactly regretful about the choices you've made, but it sounds like if you had somebody to guide you, you would have made different choices. I know for myself, I would have gone to school in California. I would have gotten out of New York without a second thought. I would have gone to California, and I would have never come back to New York. Probably wouldn't have become a lawyer. Probably would have been involved in tech from a very young age. I was anyway. And, that would have been different. But I don't regret the choices I've made. Was successful at the things that I did. Most of my businesses, I had a lot more failures than successes. But fortunately, the key is to limit your failures and let your successes run. You need to make that priority list, what's important. And as a young person, basically your aesthetic needs are a lot less. You can get by on a lot less. You can eat much cheaper. And if you have a crappy car, it doesn't matter. You can just do things on a shoestring that as an adult with a family, you wouldn't dream of doing. So that's the time to take the risks when you have nothing to lose, as opposed to as an adult where you have more to lose. And if you have a family, it's even worse and harder to do. So, sounds like a great book. Where do we get it here, Aaron?
It's on Amazon, both paperback and Kindle. I'm sure an audio version will come out one of these days once I find a recording specialist. But paperback and Kindle, just go to Amazon.com and you'll find it there, no problem.
Excellent. All right. Sounds good. So got to wrap it up at that point. So your blog, podcast, where's that at?
The flagship site's captaincapitalism.blogspot.com, and then you could find there's a link list up there, so you can go to the Clarey podcast. I got my podcast, and there's the YouTube channel, A-Hole Consulting, the Twitter, the Facebook, all that stuff is there. You can find the books, and just go to captaincapitalism.blogspot.com, and you can find it all there.
All right, and as always, you will find a link to Aaron's blog on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Make sure you go there, sign up for a free newsletter, check out all of the articles we got from all over the world. Our webmaster, Stefan, he is on it hours every day, like you can't believe it, like white on rice, finding those hard to get articles that you're just not going to find elsewhere. Hundreds of them every week. It's really amazing the job that he does. So check it out, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for the newsletter. You also get those free reports, one on gold storage that we're really proud of. Aaron, we will talk to you again soon. Be well.
Thanks, Kerry.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.